Hello, everyone. Welcome to Live from the Blue Seats. No intro today. You know, um, didn't feel that it was appropriate for the events that have transpired in the last 24 hours. Um, so, if you probably already know, we we just released the podcast last night, and it talked about the Rangers, Jacob Trouba, Ryan Lindgren, and some of the guys to fill out the bottom spots. And unbeknownst to all of us, around that time, something tragic in the hockey world was unfolding. And if you already didn't know, um, Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew were struck and killed by a drunk driver in South Jersey. And it's shaken all of us here in the hockey world. We root for different teams. We have different rooting interests, whether you're a fan of the Rangers, Blue Jackets, even the Devils, Islanders, Flyers, Penguins. We may not agree on who we root for, but at the end of the day, it's just a game. We're human beings. And when somebody, or just even anybody in general, first and foremost, let me just say that when you lose anybody in that sort of fashion, it's heartbreaking. And when you lose one of your own in the hockey community, that it stings. And the hockey community has felt it. We've all felt it, whether you're a Ranger fan. My heart goes out to the Gaudreau family and the extended family, to Johnny's family, to Matthew's family, and to anyone that is directly involved with that. My condolences and my prayers go out to to the families affected by this tragedy that honestly is 100% avoidable. And I don't know if you could tell, I'm getting a little emotional speaking about it. Even though I didn't know Johnny, I knew of Johnny on what he did on the ice. And from everything that I've read and everything that I've seen, Johnny and also his brother Matthew were just salt of the earth, wonderful people. And uh, it seems as if this was just a life taken away too soon, both him and his brother, all because of some idiot. And yes, I will say that, because of some idiot who didn't want to turn on his phone and press a couple of buttons to go home. Um, I've always liked Johnny Gaudreau as a player. I openly advocated to him becoming a Ranger. Um, he was, even though he was a smaller player, I have an affinity for players like that. Being Martin St. Louis is one of my favorite players, but Johnny Gaudreau was your typical skilled everyday hockey player that was one of the league's best. And you know, losing somebody like that, and also his brother, who was also part of the hockey community, it's just absolutely devastating. And our heart breaks and is with the family, like I said. Now, here's the thing. So this whole situation is sad, and also, and I apologize if a lot of this comes off as a bit much. I didn't prepare anything. This is me speaking off the top of my heart. I feel for Columbus fans. I do, because not even 2 years ago, um, they lost Matisse Klivnekis. If I apologize if I'm butchering that, um, on 4th of July, and that was devastating. He was so young and had so much promise and so much talent, and he died saving people from a catastrophe. And it really affected Elvis Merzlikins, and really I think it just affected the city of Columbus as a whole, and even just as us hockey fans. you know like I said, we tend to root for different teams, but we're together as one community. And even though we may not like certain players in sort of a rooting interest, it's, you want to see talent thrive, and you don't want to see it get wasted. And it's also just a human life too. You want to see players live out their potential, go through life, and do and showcase what they're good at, not only for themselves but also for us, because we're all part of it. And I know Columbus, and I know Elvis and the Columbus organization, or even to this day, are still mourning the loss of Matisse. And then to be dropped with this, I mean, it's just something that you just can't even think of. you know um Johnny Gaudreau took a leap of faith in coming to Columbus. He could have gone to New Jersey, where he's from. He could have gone to Philadelphia, but he decided to take a gamble on Columbus. I clearly something about Columbus also being close to home, but also the organizational philosophy that they preached to him. He liked it. And he decided to take the gamble. And look, I commend him for that because Columbus typically is not a market for players like him to stay at. And I'm not trying to be derogatory in this because if you just look at the trends of Columbus over the years, people have tended to leave, including our guys like Artemi Panarin, Sergei Bobrovsky, Matt Duchene, whatever, for other cities, and that's their choice. But Gaudreau took that leap of faith and decided to go to Columbus, not only to be closer to home, you know, but also to really be the guy for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And yeah, we'll mock it and we'll make jokes about it, this and that and the fourth. But Columbus is a really good hockey town. And I've always maintained that. Columbus is a wonderful hockey town. They have a strong fan base. That building is always packed, and they show up when playoffs come around. So for them to lose another skill player like that in less than 3 years, that's just heartbreaking. And my heart goes out to all of the Blue Jackets fans. You know, from a fan base who we lost, I'm thinking of Sharapanov back in 2007, 2008. He was supposed to be the next one, and he unfortunately passed away due to his heart condition. It's very sobering. It's very sobering to see players in their prime pass away, and it's just sobering to see anybody die in general like that, regardless. And then you look at his brother, who, even though he was older, that was his best friend. They were each other's strongest supporters. And to see that be removed from our hockey community all because somebody's an idiot, it's heartbreaking. And then you think of Kevin Hayes, okay? What this man, look, I've been very critical of Kevin Hayes as a player, okay? The one thing that I tend to do is I try not to criticize people off the ice because it's not my place to do so. You know, I'm not going to criticize unless they commit an egregious act that involves some sort of criminal activity or they do harm to themselves. You know, my only criticism of Kevin Hayes is on the ice. Okay. But I can't even imagine, not only with the Gaudreau family, his wife, his two kids, the mother and the father of the sons, the extended family, but also, Kev, that was his best friend. You know, that was his best friend. And this is literally coming off almost about 2 years of his brother passing away, who was also one of his, close confidants. It's just I feel for him, and I hope that, you know, he's able to deal with this accordingly. And, all my prayers and my best wishes go to him too. It's just it sucks, man. Honestly, it sucks. You know, I try not to say too much about stuff that goes on in my life, so to speak. But this hits a little harder because I've known people who were affected by reckless drivers. And it hurts me when I see people making the same mistake. And I know people aren't perfect, but it's just very demoralizing to see that people fall into the same stuff and they end up hurting other people irreparably. My life has been affected by it, so I can only imagine what the Gaudreau family and friends are dealing with right now. I had a cousin of mine who her husband, who he was really close with our family, died in a trucking accident because the other truck driver was negligent. I've had many family members of mine be affected negatively by alcohol. And this isn't like an anti-alcohol thing. It's just the effects of what alcohol can do to people. I've had many a family affected by that. I've known people who've gone to jail for killing someone with their car. You know, so when you see this happen in, to somebody else who is universally loved, the hockey stuff goes out the way and just the human decency just hurts for the people that are affected by it. And it's a shame. Johnny Gaudreau was one of the brightest stars in this league, you know, one of the best pure goal scorers this league has had, in a while. The kid could shoot the puck from anywhere and he could net it easy, you know. Like I said, I wanted him to be a Ranger at one point. And uh it sucks. It sucks. Now, I want to come off as preachy here, but it's 2024. Okay, I have a bone to pick with a couple things because the way that this kind of unfolded, not only with the person that committed the crime, but also the way that it was reported, I am not too thrilled with that. That's also what's annoying me too about all this. So first and foremost, this moron, yes, and I'm not one to call people names like that, but this dude is a moron, and he should get the hammer hit to him with the law. The law should hit him hard. Even if it was just it was just I don't say regular person, just a person who wasn't famous like they were. That person should still get the ultimate punishment in jail, because what that person did, something that has been preached and taught and driven into the minds of people for years, you know, something that has been preached since the 80s and 90s. It's not like, you know, driving impaired has been something that's just, oh, hey, well, sorry, I didn't know how to do that. No. People know you drive drunk, you will pay. And unfortunately, some people, it's too late for them. This guy thought it was okay to not only be aggressive on the road, but also be impaired as well. It's 2024. Download Uber, download Lyft, call somebody. Everybody has to know somebody that could give him a lift if you can't use Uber or Lyft. Like, come on, what are we doing here? Every time I hear of a story about somebody passing away about a drunk driver, it just annoys me because it tells me, what are you doing? Come on, dude. Seriously. It just absolute recklessness, moronic behavior. He should be in jail for a very long time for what he did. Just come on. I people have probably said it better than I have, but what are we doing here? What's the need to drink a bunch of beers? Fine, you want to do that? Great. But this stuff impairs you. What's the need to go and say, "Oh, well, I'm going to go drive my car because you want to take it back home?" If you're well off enough to own your own car, you're definitely well off enough to buy an Uber and then the next morning go back with an Uber and pick up your car when you're sober. Okay? I don't care what this guy was doing. I don't care where he was at, what his situation was. He made the conscious decision to take his keys while inebriated and drive on the road. And unfortunately, it led to the loss of 2 people. How many times do we have to deal with this? And this is with a plethora of problems that go on in our society. But how many times does this have to happen for people to say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do that? And yeah, there've been the awareness campaigns for all this with the commercials and the law really coming down hard on it has definitely decreased the rates a lot over the years, but it still happens. And unfortunately, this is not going to be the last time it's going to happen either. But the only thing you can do is just be aware and make sure for yourself, if you're listening to this and whomever this goes out to, if you're drinking, obviously don't drive for goodness sake, because you end up with stuff like this. And then to make matters worse, today was his sister's wedding, and he was going to be a part of it, both him and his brother. I mean, come on. It's just a really crappy situation. Don't drink and drive, for goodness sake. It's not that difficult, okay? They have apps for this exact reason. Call an Uber, call a Lyft, like I said. Oh, it may cost you a little much. Oh, well, deal with it. Or find a place to sit away from your car. Do something else besides drive your car, or maybe wait till you're sobered up and do it. Are you that was he that much of an alcoholic that he, couldn't wait a little bit to go wherever he was going? That's not my problem that he might have been late for something or whatever, but either way, what he did was reprehensible, and it's should be penalized harshly in the court of law, and two people's lives are taken away because of this man's reckless actions. Now, another thing was the reporting of this. Okay. This isn't breaking a trade. This isn't breaking a signing. Okay. There's no agents that are gonna tell you, hey, look, how about you do this? Okay, how about you report this? No. This is somebody's life, some people's lives being talked about here. Okay. Now, what if it wasn't true and you throw out something like that? That's very sensitive. That's very irresponsible. That Flyers journalist who reported that initially and was putting it out there, very irresponsible on your part. I'm not one to sit and publicly shame people like this, but I will shame you. Shame on you, dude. You should not be a journalist anymore because you just proved to everyone in your little Flyers community and now all over the hockey world that you have no integrity. You have no standards. Your journalistic integrity is non existent and you should stop. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm holier than thou, but if I were to find out about something that was very sensitive, like somebody dying, I'm not going to go and post it on social media for clicks. For what? Why? What exactly do you benefit from that? Why? Who in this field will benefit from breaking the news that somebody died in a tragic fashion, nonetheless? Also, whomever was involved, with the medical examiner or in terms of people who were part of the investigation, shame on you as well for even disclosing that information to people who are not law enforcement in the first place. And even if there were people who were part of law enforcement who got this news and still disseminated it out, shame on you too. Because stuff like this puts the family out in a public spot they should not be in. Because you know how the internet works. People will take something and make a mockery of it, regardless of whatever it is. Either they'll make a mockery of it or there'll be a speculation of things that could or could not be true. And that in itself could be damaging to the family, especially if that family is grieving. So, to that Flyers reporter and to the people who handled that situation with the least amount of candor possible, shame on you for doing that. Because you don't know what you could have done. Maybe somebody in that family saw that, or maybe somebody who was privy to that information online told the family and probably made their family's lives a bit worse. You don't know what's going to happen when you disseminate that information to the public. And it's none of your business, okay? So to the reporter who put it out trying to get cred, shame on you. You should not be a journalist. You should not be a writer. You have no credibility. You are scum. Okay? Now I don't know you. I don't know you personally. You're probably a really nice guy. But when it comes to your journalistic integrity and your methods, just by that, you should not be doing what you do. You are not a journalist. You are not a writer. Okay? Shame on you. And again, shame on to the people who were privy to this information in law enforcement or the medical examiners, whatever, and telling people about that information when they shouldn't have known. Look, I work for a municipality. I work for a city in the town that I live in. I work for the town that I live in. Okay. I'm privy to a lot of information, very sensitive information, but I'm not going to go out and tell the world about what goes on behind doors here, behind closed doors, because it's nobody's business. And also, there's sort of this, you know, I don't know, maybe decorum that you go through so that the township or the people can do things properly. That's why there's a thing called structure. That's why there's a thing called class. There's a thing called ethics. Okay? And if you don't follow that, you have no credibility. You don't. You're not worthy of people's trust. And that's the important thing about being a reporter or being a writer or being in this type of field, whether it's media, written media, broadcasting, whatever. You only go as far as your credibility does in many aspects. Nobody's going to want to be around someone who they know is not credible and would flip the table from under them if they wanted to get ahead. And over the years, people have gotten a lot better in making sure that those journalistic integrities hold up. And the display that I saw last night going into this morning, making and unfortunately it was true. But at the same time, at what cost are you going to put something out there to benefit yourself? What cost is that going to take? Like, what are you going to sell for that sort of interactions? This, like I said, it's just not somebody getting traded to another team. This is somebody's freaking life here. This is somebody's private life. Something that should not be known to the public until it's disseminated by the proper authorities. I don't know. I sound like I'm rambling here, but I was very disgusted at the way that that news was leaked out last night. It's just a shame because it just kind of turns this whole thing on its head, and it just kind of adds an extra element to something that doesn't need a sour element to. The guy's gone. His brother's gone. A family's grieving. Why do you have to go out and put this out when it's not confirmed? Causing people to potentially be in a panic, you know? I just I can't. I don't appreciate that. And again, I just want to, again, give my condolences and my prayers to the Gaudreau family, to anyone who was affected by this, the Columbus fans, anyone who knew him closely, because I'll tell you what, he will be missed. I as much as I don't like when players score on my favorite team, like I said, it's just nice to see when good talent is showcased, and Johnny Gaudreau was one of those guys. You know, um, there's a bunch of stories about him online. Everybody praised the guy and his brother too. I want to make sure that his brother gets enough mention in all of this as well. I was reading something earlier today, like I said, where Matthew was the one that really pushed Johnny to do a lot of things. They were each other's like best friends pretty much. And although Matthew didn't have the same NHL career like Johnny did, he was still a very good hockey player. Played in the AHL a lot. I think most recently was with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. And, you know, we really did lose two valuable members of our community. You know, I saw a lot of the clips that have been circulated around Twitter, especially the Johnny Gaudreau overtime winner against Dallas. So I have a friend who's a Flames fan, right? And I was, I was basically talking to him about Gaudreau and before when he left, and it was essentially like, listen, he's not doing it on purpose. I told him why, and he's a classy guy, this Gaudreau, and I was just filling him in on, because he's a relatively new Flames fan, so I showed him uh, the goal, and he was like, "Wow, I really wish we had kept this guy," and he's probably feeling it a little bit too. I would imagine, you know, um, and it's just and then and also like you know being even though I was born in Brooklyn, I'm Jersey bred. I mean, a part of me is still in part of me still is in Brooklyn. Of course, I can't ever escape that. But I'm Jersey born, and I'm always a bit proud of people who come from the state, whether you're South Jersey, Central Jersey, North Jersey, doesn't matter. We're all the same. Um, I always have a little bit of, pride of knowing like that guy is one of the best and he's from the same state that I'm from. And me personally, I take pride in that, you know, and seeing that his life and his brother's life were just taken away so suddenly, it hurts, just as a human being too, you know, that you lost one of your own, you know, he was his, he was I think I was reading something that he put South Jersey hockey on the map, because a lot of the stuff usually happens around where I'm at here in Central Jersey or North Jersey. It's a little more affluent, and they kind of, the hockey rinks are more up there, you know, down South Jersey, you're more prone to go to Philly. And he was the one that kind of put hockey on the map somewhat down in South Jersey because undersized kid, immense skill, you know. And then you think about everyone who's watched him over the years, you know. And obviously, I include his brother into this because they both have a direct impact. They both had a direct impact on each other. And, you know, what he's been able to do in his career as a pure goal scorer, um, it's definitely something that this league is going to miss. And then, just from reading all the stories, like the story about him, not liking sushi, but him bringing cheese sandwiches to hang out with his friends. Like, come on, dude. That's so cool. Like, what a cool guy he is for doing that. You know, uh, all the love that he's shown, for his brother and for his friends. There's the clip going around of him, celebrating at someone's wedding. It seemed like at Matthew, I think it was Kevin Hayes' wedding. I think it was. Um, it just seemed like he was universally loved, and the hockey world will miss him. And uh, obviously, give his family, the privacy that they deserve and they need in this time of mourning. And I was talking on the podcast, recording it yesterday, that the season's turning and going into um, we're going into the fall, and this is not a great way to start. As the weather's turning, the ice is going to get a bit colder. The skates are going to skate on the ice. Training camp's opening up, and it's just unfortunate that we lost two valuable members of the community. A family, a father lost his son, a wife lost a husband, a mother lost her kid, and a kid lost their father. And I didn't expect to get emotional about this a little bit, but I think back when Jose Fernandez unfortunately tragically passed away. And what you do is you're so used to seeing these people in front of your screens, and in this field that we're in, we talk about them so much that it just becomes unfathomable to see that they're not here anymore. In the case of Fernandez, I got to see him a lot because he pitched against the Mets a lot with the Miami Marlins. And even though he was killing us, or we, the games would be really close, you appreciate that kind of talent, like I said. And the same thing with Johnny Gaudreau. Boy, did it annoy me when he would score against us. But that's what happens when you're a fan. You don't want to see your team get scored on. What Ranger fan would I be if I were to cheer for somebody else that scored against us? But at the end of the day, it's just a hockey fan in general. You appreciate that kind of talent being in this league. And for me, this stuff hits hard because, like I had mentioned before, a lot of the stuff that I had gone through with my family, I can only imagine, like I said, what the Gaudreau family is currently dealing with. I can't even imagine. I'm not a parent. I don't have a kid, but many of my fellow bloggers on our team have kids, and with the and I had mentioned this somewhat during my Martin St. Louis sort of retrospective, is when you're close with your family, you have kind of that bond with them, right? And it seems as if Johnny had that with his family. And um no parent should ever have to bury their child. I'm a very emotional guy, so I put myself in a lot of situations and I try to understand the feeling of, obviously it's a bit different, I haven't experienced that yet, but and I don't want to, or if I have a kid, I don't ever want to lose them. But I think about how would my parents feel if I were to suddenly pass away? Just from seeing how other people have reacted to it. And even just thinking about that breaks my heart. And then seeing it actually happen to somebody, whether it's Johnny or Matthew Gaudreau, or some people in my family that I've known, or other people and their friends, and them losing their kids, like I can't imagine the pain and the suffering that has to be going through their hearts and their minds and their souls. And that's what really makes this sad. It's just the loss of a life that shouldn't have been taken away. So I apologize in advance if any of this comes out insensitive. I'm just speaking from straight from the heart. I didn't plan or rehearse anything. I just popped open my computer and I just set it up and I just started recording. But I just felt it was only right that um, at least either myself or at least the blog had something in regards to the passing of Johnny Gaudreau, because it is hockey related, but it's also just human decency, human life related. You know, like I said, us hockey fans, we appreciate good talent, and even though guys like Sidney Crosby, Ovechkin, and people who play against the Rangers are here to go against our rooting interests, the growth of a sport really hinges on its talent, and Johnny Gaudreau was one of those guys that really made it stand out. He was one of the better one of the best. Honestly, one of the best American players to ever play the game. You know, he may not have all the fancy records or whatever, but the kid was damn talented. So, again, like I said, I apologize if any of this is insensitive or anything. I'm just trying. I'm trying to process this myself, because now, you know, even someone as far back as I am relative to the situation, it's it's affecting me. It's just the loss of a human life in general just eats me up, especially the way that it happened. You know, but thankfully, if there was a silver lining to any of this, which it's really hard to do that, but I'm a very optimistic person, is that people will never forget him as somebody who was a bad person. And unfortunately, even though he was taken away from us too soon, way too soon, like, he should have been able to finish his career, retire, and be a part of the hockey community, in perpetuity until, old age. Um, there will always be good memories of him, and everyone loved him and cherished him, and that seems like it will be his legacy. You know, he did a lot in Calgary. He donated to a lot of charitable organizations. From what I've read, he was very instrumental in helping his teammates out with mental health. That is what we will remember him by, along with his skill, not for what happened to him. And I think that's the one thing I've noticed online over the last couple of hours, is that he's being remembered for the good that he did, not for how he was taken away. And I think that's a silver lining, if there were ever was one, in this very, very incredibly tragic and sad situation. So with that being said, um, I wanted to say something. I'm not sure if anyone else on the blog will say anything. But I felt, at least as the producer of a hockey podcast, even though it's not Rangers related, it's Rangers adjacent, but we're all part of the hockey community, and I felt I just needed to say something more than just putting out a tweet. You can only say something in 180 characters, and I don't think that's justice, at least to me, from what I want to say for Gaudreau and his brother and his family. So again, my deepest condolences and prayers go out to the Gaudreau family, to everyone involved, close friends, family, to the Columbus fans. Even though we're rivals, our hearts are with you. I can't even imagine having to deal with two big losses like this, with players that have been on the team. So we all stand together as one in this very difficult time, and just know that the hockey community is with you. So with that being said, um, I guess we'll have a podcast later next week after Labor Day. Not entirely sure if we'll have the full gang back. But either way, we'll definitely have something for you next week. So rest in peace to Johnny and Matt. May their memory uh may their memories continue may their memories, excuse me, may their memories be everlasting, and we continue to remember them as the good people and players that they were. So thank you very much, and I guess we'll talk next week.